Whoops, I'm going to turn my screen around here.
There you go.
All right. Okay, so we're going to welcome everybody to our Luminous Mysteries event. And I want you to take a really good look. I don't know if anybody's noticed because nobody said. We're in ordinary time. That's why everything is green, okay? That's why everything is green, because that's the color for ordinary time. We're not in, that means we're not in Lent, we're not in Advent, we're not in Christmas, we're not in any special season. And it's called ordinary time because it's numbered. It's the weeks that are numbered. They're ordinal, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not because there's nothing ordinary about Jesus, right? Right, so it's ordinal. All right, so we're going to go ahead. I'm going to start with a prayer tonight. We're going to talk about the Transfiguration. And so we're going to go ahead and start with this prayer. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father in heaven, whose Son, Jesus Christ, was wonderfully transfigured before chosen witnesses upon the holy mountain and spoke of the Exodus he would accomplish at Jerusalem. Give us strength so to hear his voice and bear our cross, that in the world to come we may see him as he is, who is alive and reigns with you in the unity of the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen. Okay. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So let's talk about last week. Anybody have any thoughts about last week? Anything? I know it was a rough week. I was kind of laughing to myself afterwards, thinking it was probably the worst class I've ever taught. I felt that I had really failed you, but then I looked and I noticed that everybody had fringed up eyebrows and they were really concentrating. So that's a good thing. So what kinds of thoughts did you have about last week? Anybody have any sharings? Gary?
Okay, I don't have anything right now.
Okay. So I had just two thoughts I had. One was remember the proclamation of the kingdom. We could have gone anywhere in the life of Jesus to show the proclamation of the kingdom. We could have talked about his healings, right? We could have talked about other parables, the big long story parables. We could have talked about his casting out demons, just the teachings, the Sermon on the Mount, the Our Father, the prayers. But I chose just some short parables about the kingdom. And I want you to remember that parables are used to make us think differently. Jesus used normal items, normal things that people were so familiar with that they didn't think about them anymore. And he used them to show them a different way of thinking. And so what happened last week was we were pushing to think differently. And always when we think differently, when we're using a different part of our brain, it does make us concentrate. And so I very much appreciated the hard work that you guys put in last week to ponder that. And so hopefully, as you move forward in this rosary, when you come to the proclamation of the kingdom, you don't think, oh, I hate this one. You think, oh, there's so much I could think of anything. Okay. And Sue's laughing at me. All right. So this week we are doing the Transfiguration. Oh, yes, Gary.
Okay. All right. I just thought of something.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. One of the things when we were talking about the seeds and the sowing of the seeds and the growing of the seeds, what we used to call those back in the Midwest, those were the farmers' gospels. Okay. And they always occurred, in late July, August, and you've gone through the planting season and now the crops are growing and you go into the harvest. So the point I guess I was trying to make is that even though we're relevant back then, for us, they were very relevant now because you totally depended upon the weather and everything else that can either go good for you or bad for you. So that would be my thought about the.
Okay, that is really cool. Yeah, because even farmers today would recognize a lot of those images. Yes, very cool. And that's what's so cool is that the Bible is so timeless, and I like that. And then like how appropriate that it would be right during the season when they were concentrating on all of that. So that's, good timing there with that also. Super. Any other thoughts? Okay, let's move forward. Tonight, we're going to talk about the fourth luminous mystery, and that's the Transfiguration. We're coming up into the region of Galilee, and we're going to Mount Tabor, Tabor, Mount Tabor. And you may already be familiar with the story. We're going to look at it a little bit tonight. So Mount Tabor, I want you to just kind of look at Mount Tabor for a moment and see its shape here, right? So it goes up. It's not a mountain like we think of mountains. It's not like the Rockies, right? So it's just a huge hill, kind of an upturned, little bit of a flatness there. And so we're going up this mountain. The people would have been down, other people would have been at the bottom while Jesus took James, Peter, and John up to the top of this mountain to experience this moment. And so just wanted you to kind of remember this and as we talk about it. And what I want to do tonight, I want to do things a little bit, just want to shake things up a little bit, kind of move out of our normal pattern just to kind of, just for a little bit of a break so that we don't get too comfortable with the way we're doing things so that we still kind of hear things. I want to talk about the word transfigure, and then I want to talk to you. I'm going to read you the story 3 times tonight. All right, because it's in all 3 of the synoptic gospels. So we know we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, and Luke have the same focus. They look at Jesus's humanity. And so we call those the synoptic. So the things that look at him, synonyms are the same. So they look at Jesus in the same way. Jesus as a human being, right? And although each of them have their focus, one writes for the Romans, one writes for other Jews, one writes for the Gentiles. There's a main look as Jesus as human. John writes about Jesus's divinity. And so his is considered a whole separate category of itself. So we have the synoptic gospels, and this story is told in all 3 of the synoptic gospels. And we're going to take a look at that and what happens. And we're going to talk about why things are the way they are. So we're going to do a little bit of that. But tonight, as we talk about transfiguration, wanted to talk about what transfigure means. And so just to remember that it's something that transforms into something more beautiful or elevated. So as we hear that. So I'm going to read you all 3 of the gospels here. The first time I want you to think about it. So you're going to use both sides of your paper tonight if you want to. On the one side of your paper, as I read it, if you choose to, you don't have to do this part. This isn't what I had the paper for, but I thought, well, this is okay because you can use it if you want to. The first time through, we're going to look at it like a newspaper article. The who, the what, the where, when, why, and how. All right. We're just going to kind of go through and say, what is it? What is the story that's happening? All right. The second time through, we're going to look for any details that have been added, anything that's any different, or is it all the same? Okay. So we're going to do Matthew and Mark. And then the third time through, I'm going to have you put yourself in the scene and you're going to be somebody. And at that point, I want you to concentrate on what is it that you see, hear, smell, taste, feel. You're going to use your senses as you're in the scene. You're going to become somebody or something in the scene so that you can experience this differently. And we'll talk about these 3 experiences. Then when we'll use our paper later, but if you want to use it, you've got some notes that you can write down. Okay. Everybody ready then for tonight? All right. This was really, really hard for me to show you, but so what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus it real close. I'm going to pull it up to the first one and we'll read it. And the second one, I've got all 3 of the gospels up at the same time. So I'm going to turn my screen. And of course it didn't turn very well, but I'm going to try it anyway. And then I'm going to get it nice and close to the Matthew story. All right. And I'm going to read it with you. Can you guys see that better than the way it was? Okay. So I'm going to read this one and then we're going to read the second one and then the third one. So we're just going to kind of read it. We're going to talk about what we were asked to look at. This one's going to be the who, what, where, when, why, how. All right. So I have Matthew, and this is from Matthew 17. And we say, Jesus took Peter, James, and John, his brother, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. And he was transfigured before them. His face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as light. And behold, Moses and Elijah appeared to them, conversing with him. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, Lord, it is good that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 tents here, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. While he was still speaking, behold, a bright cloud cast a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell prostrate and were very much afraid. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise and do not be afraid. And when the disciples raised their eyes, they saw no one else but Jesus alone. As they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus charged them, "Do not tell the vision to anyone until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead." Okay, let's pull that one apart. All right, let's talk about it. What do we know? What do we know about this one? What is the who, the what, the where, when, why, or how? Who wants to share any of them? What's going on in this story?
Joanne, can you leave it up while we talk about it, or is that?
Okay, sure. I'll turn it back around. Sure. I just
Not that I
always,
don't wanna
I
see-
just, I just
Not
didn't
that I don't
want
want to see you.
I just didn't want you to think that I was hiding from you all night. So I just think maybe I should show my face a little bit, but I'm very happy to leave this on. It's much better.
No, I like to see you, but I just was trying to.
No worries. No worries.
you.
Can you see it there?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So who wants to share anything? Who has a who, what, where, when, why, or how? Ina.
Okay, can you hear me?
I sure can. Thank you.
Okay, we definitely have Jesus there and his apostles.
Yeah.
I
Which
forgot who-
apostles?
James, yeah, Peter, James, and John.
Peter, James, and
then-
John.
Then later we have Elijah and Moses,
Okay.
and then we have God the Father, and the Holy Spirit. No,
Okay.
God, the Holy Spirit, I don't think was there. Was he? No, just God the Father.
Okay. All right.
That's the who.
That's the who. All right. What's going on here? Who's the what? What's the what?
Transfiguration.
We got the transfiguration, right? Right. So let's talk about this. How did the transfiguration occur? And I know you don't have to answer all the questions just because you answered the first one. You can say, I'm going to let someone else answer if you want to. Okay. So how did the transfiguration occur? You know, we do something in school, we call it popcorn, and we let the person who answered the last question call on somebody else. They'll say popcorn and they'll name somebody else. And it's pretty funny because a lot of times the same person gets popcorned, you know? I know, would you like to popcorn somebody? And remember, if you're popcorned, you can say pass if you want to.
Okay, Fran.
Hold on, Fran, you're still on, there you go. Okay, Fran, you're off mute. Okay, what do you want to share, Fran?
Well, transfigured, that word.
Yes.
Does that mean he was suddenly man and then he's suddenly God?
Well, it means that he was changed in such a way that he was better and bigger than what he was before. So we're going to see what was the transfiguration that occurred with him? What was this change that took place in him?
Well, he became like the sun and his clothes became white as light.
Yes.
Is that what it's going to be like whenever we leave this world? Are we going to suddenly, if we go to heaven, suddenly see this or be exposed to it or what?
We're going to talk about that. I think that's an excellent question. We'll go ahead and talk about it now. What do we know about Moses when he went to talk to God? Does anybody remember when he would go into the tabernacle? Rosemary, I saw your hand go up. What do we know about that?
When he came down from the mountain, he had to cover his face because his face shone that nobody could look at him.
Yeah. So we say Jesus is the light of the world, right? And Moses, when he got close to God, and we know that God is the Father, God is the Son, and God is the Holy Spirit, right? We know our one God is three: God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. We know that this wonderful light shone whenever Moses was near him, so much so that his own body reflected back this light and people couldn't see it. So now what do we have here with Jesus on a mountain? We have the same thing happening. He's showing a glimpse of who God is. He is as the God man, right? And we also know later that we become, that Jesus is showing us who we become. So by being so close to our brilliant God, I think we might very much be very bright lights, also have a very bright aura to us. because Jesus is showing us something, but he's showing us something more than who we will be. What is he showing us? What do you think, Fran? What do you think he's showing us?
What it's going to be like to be in God's presence.
Yeah, I think he's showing us that. I think, Gary, do you have thoughts on this? Maybe I should let Gary do some talking, because sometimes coming from the same person, it's all the same. Gary, thoughts on that?
I guess one of the things I wanted to try to do is kind of put it in the context of the Bible. Can I just take a second to do that?
Sure.
Okay, this occurred right after what we call, "Who do you say that I am?"
Yes.
And Peter responds, "You are the Messiah." And Jesus says in response, "Simon, son of Jonah, you are rock, and upon this rock I will build my church." Okay, and then this occurred just 6 days later after that. And one of the things that happened is that Peter now becomes the prime minister, if you will, of the context of things that are occurring in the world. And what we see here is Peter, John, and James, and this is the inner circle now of Jesus's group. And if you notice, Peter is always mentioned first because of his position. Okay, so taking that's how they are. And as they're looking at Jesus now in a very different light, they're starting to see Jesus in a very different light, but they're still confused about the meaning of the Messiah. Okay, and of course, then it comes the predictions about dying, going to Jerusalem, and dying on the cross, and they can't accept that. So they are in transition right now, but it's at least some of these things are starting to make sense to them. So, okay, and I'm sorry, now what was the question that you...
Okay, so now the question is, what do you think he was showing them?
Well, I think he was showing him in glory that, he indeed is the Messiah, but they still have a problem trying to understand it. He's trying to work with them to come to this understanding of the Messiah.
Right. Because remember, they didn't have a Bible to read. They don't have the whole story yet, right? They're trying to figure out Jesus, who is a God man, from human standards. So they have no context for this. And they're going up to this mountain. They've never seen anything like this before. And so Jesus is trying to show them something. All right. We see that he shows them by shining like the sun and his clothes becoming white as light. We've seen this kind of thing before. With Moses coming down from the mountain. We know that when angels come, right, they'll talk about the angels being a very bright and fierce looking thing, something that scares them. So we know that we've got something really different happening here. So we're going to just keep moving through the story and try to piece this together. So we have what it was that happened. He changed his form there. And how did he change that form into something much more, right? He wasn't just a man standing there. He was a man in kind of a God glory, right? Really bright light. And this was at the top of the mountain. Who, what, where? When it was after this moment of this, it was after 6 days, it says, and it was 6 days after they had talked about, who do you say that I am, right? And they've told him, well, we believe that you're God. And so they go there. Where, when, why? Why did he do this? This is the big question here. Why did he do this? Why do you think he took these 3 guys up a mountain and showed him a glimpse of who he really is? Sue Fraley.
Well, I mean, he kind of knew what was coming down the pike, right? I mean, or what was going to come down the pike.
He so totally did.
So his guys, don't. And so he knows how they are, and he figures they're going to gonna waver and do all this. So he's shown them this thing they're never going to forget. So that when they're in doubt and when things get bad, they're going to remember this moment, and it's going to help them to have faith to get through it. because it's so incredible, that, and it's so unhuman and so out there, so divine, that it's just, they need real proof to get through what's coming down the pipe. I don't know.
Yeah, we need something to help us. So kind of think about this. If I'm going to run a marathon, which is basically what these guys are going to do from this point out, things are going to go pretty rapidly. If I'm going to run a marathon, what do I have to do in order to be able to run the marathon on the marathon day? What do I have to do? Jen Yeager, what do I have to do if I'm going to run a marathon?
You have to practice and train, and it's kind of like that's what Jesus is doing for these men. He's kind of giving them different signs of who he is, and God telling them this is my beloved son is just another strong piece of evidence and piece of the puzzle, so that when Jesus is not there, these men can go and speak to other people and say, look, this is the proof that we have. It's not just that Jesus is telling them something, but they have all these different sort of pieces of proof to share with other people that he really was the Messiah.
Okay. So we're going to go back to you train and you prepare. And when I'm training and preparing for a marathon, what am I doing? How am I doing that?
You're getting your mind and your body in it.
Right. I'm getting my mind and my body ready, right? I'm eating good things. I'm filling myself up with good things, right? Physically, I'm eating well. Mentally, I'm telling myself I can do this, just 1 more mile today. I'm preparing myself over and over. So Jesus needs to prepare his guys, okay? He needs to prepare them not just for what's coming up, but for what comes after he's gone. And so he's got to fill them up, right? He's got to fill them up mentally and physically. And so he's been walking with them for 3 years. And I think that one of these is I think that one of the things that's going on here is not only is he showing them who he is, that he's the God-man, but he's giving them this, just like Jen said, so that when they're in a down moment, they're filled up. They've got what they need inside there. They're filled up. They've got their tank full so that they can say, oh, this is what this is about. They didn't understand it at this time. At this time, they didn't understand it. But I want to keep pulling this apart. Okay. So we have 2 people that appear with Joseph, with Jesus. Who are those 2 people? Who are those 2 people? Sue Fraley?
Elijah and Moses.
Yeah, who are Elijah and Moses? Who are they? Who are Elijah and Moses? Okay, let's start with the easy one. Moses. Who remembers what Moses did? Why is Moses an important person? All right, I saw Gary's hand go up first. Gary?
I yield to Jen.
Okay, Jen, who's Moses?
You can leave the hard questions for Gary. He's better at this. Well, Moses led the Israelites out of Canaan. And he received the 10 commandments.
Okay, so out of Egypt into the land.
Out of
right?
Egypt, sorry, yes, out of Egypt.
Right.
Yes.
Out of Egypt, right? And he gave us the 10 commandments. Okay, so Moses represents the law, right? Right? The Jews called they called it the Decalogue, the 10 words, right? And it was the law, right? And Moses represented the law. Moses was the one who gave them the law. Moses was the one who explained the law. Moses was the big kahuna, right? For the law. All right. Who is Elijah? Who's Elijah? Sue Fraley, I saw your hand move.
Big time prophet.
Big time prophet, right?
Yeah.
The big time prophet, right? As a matter of fact, he is the big kahuna of the prophets, right? So Elijah, he was the one who stopped the rain for 3 years, right? Fought against King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, right? Brought the rain back. He was the one who, when it was time for him to die, he did not die. He was taken away in the chariot of fire, right? So he was taken into heaven without dying. And so he is the big kahuna of the prophets. Okay, what is the Jewish Bible, right? It's an Old Testament, all right? What is it made up of? It's made up of the law and the prophets. right? So everything they believe is sourced back to those two pieces, right? The law and the prophets. So Jesus is there with them, and he's got the big representative of the law, and he's got the big representative of the prophets. What do you think that means? What do you think that's going on there?
Can I ask a
Yeah.
question first to go?
Yeah, you can ask. You sure?
So maybe I should know this, but I don't. Are Moses, Elijah, Peter, John, James, they weren't living at the same time, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
So, but Peter, James, and John would have known of Moses and Elijah just from stories passed down, or?
Right, because they are good Jews, and the good Jews would have known all about that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that good point there. Elijah and Moses lived many hundreds of years before this. Yes.
That's what I thought. I just wanted to.
Yes. So what's so important about Moses and Elijah being with Jesus? What would make that important?
Probably the fact that those people were the ones that Peter, James, and John would have been heard of for so long that it was kind of solidifying the stories that were told to them from Moses and Elijah, kind of solidifying that as truth even more, the fact that they're now with Jesus.
Okay. And then let's look at that also from the reverse. So it also works one way, but the other way is that these Moses and Elijah have already been affirmed, right? And they are affirming that Jesus is so. Jesus is as important, if not more important, right? We're going to look at one of the other tellings of this, and we're going to find out what Moses and Elijah were doing with Jesus. And here it says conversing. In one of the other ones, they talk about what they were conversing about. So we're going to find that out a little bit if we don't remember that. All right. Then this big shadow, this big cloud comes over, right? What do we know about, when have we seen a cloud before? When have we seen a big cloud? And a voice come out of a cloud. Ina.
At his baptism.
At the baptism.
And I was going to say, as an answer to your question, that he was the fulfillment of the law and the prophets.
Yes.
So he wanted
yes.
to show them that.
Absolutely, Ina. Yes. So we have this fulfillment of the law and the prophets. We have this cloud that comes, and we've seen a cloud before. In the New Testament, we've seen a cloud and heard a voice, right? At Jesus's baptism. What did the voice say at the baptism?
This is my son.
This is my son. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This is my son with whom I'm well pleased. Look at it. God says it again. This is my beloved son with whom I'm well pleased. He adds something. What does he add? Gary?
He added, listen to him. And what's unique about this, at the time of the baptism, scholars aren't really sure if only it was revealed to Jesus and to John the Baptist, or if any other of the people that were there had heard this. But now we have a case where definitely the other people have heard these words from God.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about listen to him. When have we heard listen to him before? Sue Fraley.
Mary.
Yeah. When did Mary say listen to him?
At the wedding feast.
At the wedding feast. She said, do whatever he tells, right? Listen to whatever he says and do it. This idea of listen to him in their language. Listen wasn't just a passive hearing with your ears. Listen meant hear the word, let it go into your ears, and let it affect what you do. Let it change. Do what you hear is said. So that listening was as much an active command as it was a passive command. This whole idea of, when you listen to him, you're going to hear what he says and you're going to do what he says. All right. So let's touch on, let's finish the rest of the story here and touch on the other pieces that are in here. So how did the apostles react when they heard God's voice? Sue Gerhardt, how did they react?
They were quaking in their boots.
They sure were quaking in their boots. They were scared to death. They felt prostrate, down on their faces, right? Right, in the position of worship, but terrified, right? Terrified. They had not ever encountered God in this way, and they were scared. I want to go back. I think I want to make one more Old Testament connection with this idea of the cloud. When did we see a cloud in the Old Testament that we might expect to know God? Yes, Gary.
Okay, the cloud was always, every time that God was around the Ark of the Covenant, where he resided, then there was a cloud. And there were
Yes.
also clouds at the time of crossing the Red Sea, when they
Yes.
were escaping from Egypt.
Yes.
So the presence of God in the Old Testament was characterized by a cloud.
Yes. Yes. And we see this cloud whenever, not only when they were crossing, but whenever they were being led all across the desert. At night, they were led by a pillar of fire. And in the daytime, this cloud would come. So they're very much in tune with the idea that God visits them in a cloud. So we're very sure that this is God. So we have these disciples quaking in their boots, very much afraid. And what does Jesus tell them? What does he do to pacify them? Rosemary, I haven't heard from you tonight very much.
Yes, you did, but yeah, he touched them and said, "Don't be afraid."
Don't be afraid, right? Don't be afraid. Okay, how many times these beautiful angels would say, "Don't be afraid," because they were fierce looking. Meeting God face to as close as what they were, that's scary. And Jesus says, "Don't be afraid," right? And then Jesus, as they're coming down the mountain, he gives them a command. And what is that command? What's he tell them? He says, "Don't do something." Don't do what? Don't do what? What does he tell them not to do? Sue Fraley.
Tell anyone?
Don't tell anyone. He says, "Don't tell anyone until I've been raised from the dead." Why do you think he says, "Don't tell anyone"?
Maybe the description of what happened could never, they could never really do it justice.
Okay, that could be. That could be. I saw Sue Gearhart's hand go up, and then I saw Rosemary's go up.
From someone who really doesn't know this story very well, you know what? Those guys go down there and they start telling those other apostles about what they saw and what they got to be a part of. You're going to have strife in a crowd of people.
Okay. He likes you best.
That's what I was thinking. They're gonna start going, he likes you better than us, and then there's gonna be strife. I don't know the story well, so
okay.
That's my thought.
Rosemary, thoughts on that? And then Jen after Rosemary.
Okay, my thought was if they went out and told people, it happened before. They wanted to make him king then, and he wouldn't be able to finish what he needed to do.
Okay. Jen, thoughts?
That's kind of along the lines of what I was thinking. God had a plan of how this whole thing should be carried out. And again, if people started hearing things like that too soon, then that might kind of mess with the plan of how God had things laid out to happen with the crucifixion. But he wanted them to see it obviously ahead of time, so they had it in their arsenal to tell people after the fact. So.
Right. And even to remind themselves when it came time for the crucifixion. So which one of the answers is right? Rosemary? Which one do you think?
All of them.
Yes, I think you're right. I think they're all right? I think they're all right. And there's probably more reasons in there, but I think that we've got to hit on that really well. All right. I want to read the one from Mark now. Oh, yes. Gary, you have a comment.
Could I add just one thing? When they're walking down the mountain.
Yes.
Okay. What is interesting is starting to perk up Peter, John, and James' curiosity. Okay, because they're starting to associate Elijah with the idea that before the Messiah comes, Elijah is supposed to come first. Okay, and so they're starting to say, well, how is this going to happen? And then, of course, the elite discussion leads to an understanding that Elijah is John the Baptist.
Yes, yes, there is a conversation about that. And if it wasn't solidified enough, then they actually saw Elijah. I think I want to ask about, so we know that Peter is the forerunner. He's the leader of these apostles, of these 12, and becomes our first pope. All right. Who is James and who is John? Why these three? Why are they his inner circle? Who does James, what leadership role in the church does James lead later? Gary, I see your mouth. I see you're wanting to move. Yep.
All right. I guess, it came to John. John's the evangelist who writes the Gospel of John.
Yes.
Okay. But now, I guess if you're thinking James as being the leader of the church in Jerusalem.
Yes. Is this the wrong James?
Well, I think it's the James that is, it would maybe be Jesus' stepbrother.
Okay. The one in Jerusalem or the one here?
Well, no, that would not be the one here.
Okay.
It would be the one that would be, James would be the older son, supposedly of Joseph, or a relative of Jesus,
Okay.
a cousin.
Okay.
And he is the one that ascended to the job of the head of the church in Jerusalem.
Yes. Yes. Head of the church in Jerusalem. And John is also, not only is he the one who writes the book of John, he's the one that they specifically call the one Jesus loved, the beloved, right?
Beloved.
He was the youngest of the apostles. He was probably like having a young, we know how young children just give us energy. And so he probably really struck something in Jesus that really made him feel alive, right? And Jesus really had a really warm, fun spot in his heart for him. So we have these three who are very important people. Yes, Gary.
Question there to follow up on who James is.
Yes.
James, of course, is the apostle, and he is one of the earlier ones that were killed, that you find out in the Acts of the
Yes.
Apostles, as well. So I don't know if he had any long future role as apostle or
Right.
spreading
Right.
the
So
gospel.
after the Holy Spirit came, whatever period of time passed after that, he was one of the first. He was because he was a leader, he was killed as a martyr. The cool thing is James and John are brothers, right? They're called the sons of thunder, right? So they either were very boisterous and made a lot of noise, or they're very ruckus and like to wrestle a lot. We're not quite sure why they're called the sons of thunder. But we have these three special, and always when we have their inner circle come together, we're going to see them later in some of the other, in another mystery together as an inner circle. So just wanted to bring that forth. Okay. Questions, comments before we move to the next. Yes, iPad Fran.
Okay. Gary said something that was very confusing, and it probably doesn't really relate to all these, what you've read and everything. When he said Elijah, who I remember as riding a chariot to heaven.
Yes.
And then he said, that was John the Baptist?
No, we find out in a story, Jesus is saying that Elijah had to come again. And at one point, Jesus says, yes, John the Baptist is the representative of Elijah. So he is the Elijah of the New Testament.
Okay.
So
All right.
he has the same kind of role as Elijah in the New Testament. Okay.
Okay.
Other comments, thoughts, questions? Okay. I want to go to the next one. In this one, I want you to just listen and see what is different. Is there anything different, or is everything the same? Is there anything new? All right, I'm going to move this one over now. We're going to go to Mark. Let's see if I can do this just a little better here. Is this driving you nuts, Sue, because it's so much movement? Whoops. All right. I'll try really hard to keep it still while I'm doing it there. Okay. After 6 days, Jesus took Peter, James, and John and led them up a high mountain apart by themselves. and he was transfigured before them. And his clothes became dazzling white, such as no fuller on earth could bleach them. Then Elijah appeared to them along with Moses, and they were conversing with Jesus. Then Peter said to Jesus in reply, Rabbi, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah. He hardly knew what to say. They were so terrified. Then a cloud came, casting a shadow over them. Then from the cloud came a voice. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. Suddenly, looking around, they no longer saw anyone but Jesus alone with them. As they were coming down from the mountain, he charged them not to relate what they had seen to anyone, except when the Son of Man had risen from the dead. Okay, what do we hear? What's different? What's the same? What struck out to you out of Mark's? Out of Mark's. Okay, let's see. Well, Nance, I haven't called on you. Do you hear anything different? Do you hear anything new? Is there anything that struck out to you? Remember to have to unmute first. Unmute first. Okay.
I came in late. I was having problems with my computer.
Okay.
So I
And so
didn't
I
hear
wasn't.
the first part.
You didn't hear the first one. Okay.
Right.
Was there anything that struck you in this one that you're saying, oh, I remember that, or that's new to me?
No, I remember it.
Pretty much as you remember.
Sounds
Okay.
very familiar.
Okay. 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 How about oh, Fran. Thanks, Nance. Yep, you're on mute. Hold on. All right,
All right.
Fran.
All right. Whenever Peter said this, does that kind of relate to something that the Jews did in those days about the tents, building the 3 tents or
Yeah.
something?
The tents there. Yeah, he did talk about the tents in the last one. We didn't really cover that. Good catch there. What's the deal about the tents? There is something about tents, right? There is something about tents. They would put tents out in the harvest field during one of their seasons, and they would be out in the harvest area. And that was a worship time. They called it the Feast of Booths, and it was a holy time. Susan Gerhardt?
George told me about, my son George told me about that. It is still done today, and people literally move out of their houses or wherever they're living, and they move into those booths, and it's a festival for them, along with the religious aspect of it. But yeah, when you said about the tents, it just reminded me of what he had told me. He was there at one point and was invited to participate with one of the colleagues he had there. So,
Okay, so they
call it the Festival of the Booths.
Festival of the Booths, and they would go out and they would praise and worship. It had to do with harvest, right?
Yeah.
Okay. What else might a tent be? What else might a special tent be? Gary?
The tent is where the Ark of the Covenant was kept in their journey of their 40 years in the desert.
Yeah, it was. And so what was so important about that tent? You know, God was there, but what did they do with that tent other than just carry it around and pack it back up and put it in another spot again? What did they do with that? What did they do when they used that tent?
Put it in a big temple, didn't they?
I didn't hear you.
Did they put it in the temple? I thought.
Well, the
they
ark,
did
they
the
ended up,
temple?
right? The ark of the covenant they put in the temple,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But they carried it around in the desert. They carried this tabernacle around, and then they would put it up. And what would happen in this tent, this big tent? They called it the tent of meeting for Joseph, right? But what was it? What specifically happened there? Gary?
I guess I was just saying that's where God resides.
That's where God resides. And people would go, right? And they would worship there, and they would remember, right? They would pray.
Yes,
So-
okay. Yes,
Yes.
okay, you're right. And this, of course, is one of the things when David was concerned by the fact that, here God lives in a tent, and King David has this palace, and so he wants to build a great temple
Yes.
for God to God reside there. And of
Yeah,
course,
and God,
it was
and he's
Solomon
not
that
allowed
ended
to
up
be.
doing that.
Yes, yes, yes. So it's a place of worship. So basically, Peter's saying, hey, let's put these little spots to worship, one to remember, and pray for you, and one to remember, and we can worship Moses, and one for Elijah. Because it says he didn't really know what to say. He just knew that this was really important, and he didn't know what to do with it. And he wanted to build a memory place. We put these little these little alcoves in our forests and places to worship, these little altars, right? And basically he's wanting to build an altar. He's wanting to build a little miniature church. He's wanting to put a place where you can go and say, this is where God is, right? This is where God is. This is where Moses is. This is where Elijah is. He wants to have this place of great holiness pointed out, right? Does Jesus let him do that? No. Why do you think he doesn't let him do that? And I think it goes back to some of our earlier answers, but why isn't he allowed to do that? Jesus just kind of brushes over that. They say, Peter's so out of his mind, he doesn't even know what he's saying. What's that all about? Jen, I haven't pushed you for a little bit. Oh, you have a great face,
I don't really know why they wouldn't want a place to worship. I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't want that, or why wouldn't want.
Well, what would happen
that
if right this moment? So the great thing happens, and they put up these 3 tents there. What then happens?
People would stop, and maybe they wouldn't be focused on what was coming next. Maybe they wouldn't be focused on God coming and saying, "This is my beloved son." Maybe they'd be focused elsewhere.
Right. So first, certainly we know that worship happens in these tents, and we don't want to worship Moses. We don't want to worship Elijah, right? And certainly the purpose right now isn't for that. That's not the focus of what happened. This moment of happening, it's not about building a new place to meet God. It's about finding out who Jesus is more so, is it not? Okay. All right. Any other thoughts? Do we see anything different or anything new in this one? Did anybody notice anything that they wanted to share? Again, we have white clothes, dazzling white. This time, instead of like the sun, they say as no fuller on earth could bleach them. So super white, whiter than any bleached clothing, right? So we're going super, super white. Peter, James, and John are the same. Moses and Elijah are the same. They're talking with Jesus. The cloud comes. Imagine God says the same thing in this story. This is my beloved son. Listen to him. And then they're told not to tell. Okay. Comments, questions, concerns. Yes, Sue.
I've always had a question about this whole scene. I mean, you're talking about, 2,000 years ago. There's probably not, drawings or photographs or anything of Elijah and Moses. How did Peter know that was Moses and Elijah? How would you know that? Like, these two things appear and it's like, oh, that's Moses and Elijah. Like, how would they know that?
Okay, so let's think about this. Say we didn't have television today, and you had heard that we had a new president, right? And people were telling you about him and how he acted and who he was, and you knew a little bit about him. And you go to this party one day, and there's all these really great dignitaries, and you know that everybody here is really important. How do you know if the president would show up? How might you recognize the president?
Maybe because the way other people were acting towards this person, maybe.
Okay. All right. What else might set him apart?
Just knowing facts about him.
Okay, just knowing facts about him. Might he have something on him that would maybe represent that he was president of the United States? Would he maybe wear a pin? Might he he would have Secret Service around him? I mean, there would be something very much, you would be able to know that he was at least a dignitary, and then you'd hear him speak in English, right? And so you'd know he was a very famous dignitary from the United States. right? And you know, there's really important people, and kind of be able to kind of narrow it down to a couple of really important people in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how might Moses look? What would Moses maybe have with him or on him or about him that the people would recognize? Susan Gearhart.
Moses would have that rod that he used.
He might have that rod that he used, right? What else? What else might Moses have?
Would he be carrying something similar, or an image of the tablets?
He could be. He could be. Also, when he was described, they also described him as having, I don't know why they described these little knobs on his head, right? They said that he had horns. There were these knobs on his head, and they described him as horns. And it's so funny when you look at statues of Moses or some paintings that they have. And I don't know what that was, whether there really were, bumps on his head, or whether they were like this shining light that would, come out of him. So they would definitely know because of the rest of the context, whether when they described Moses to others, they described how he looked, but he might have a staff, he might have something with, maybe he had a tablet in his hands. Elijah, they would just kind of know by the context around. So there's something there that describes them. And if you met your grandparents, you might.
I hate to
you know,
interrupt,
your
but I'm not getting any
great-great-great-grandparents.
voice.
What's that? Your voice? Yeah, their voice. Maybe they had a recognition of the voice. If you meet former relatives that you had never met before, you might know them because they looked like somebody you knew. So perhaps there were living people from the line of who were still in the, they had those images. Yeah, that's a really good question. I'm just trying to think of maybe it was context, right? But they're also hearing him talking. We're going to look at Luke now, and we're going to hear about what they were talking about. Yes, Jennifer.
Could it have been that just God put that in them to just know in their heart that
That could be. Yeah, that could be. Or maybe Jesus said, "Hey, Elijah. Hey, Moses." Yes, Gary, your thoughts.
Yeah, I would suggest one thing's a little different with this passage is that Moses and Elijah were conversing with Jesus. So, Jesus knew them.
Yeah. Hey, yo, Mo,
Called
how
him
you
by
doing
name.
today?
Yeah.
What's that, Rosemary?
He called him by name.
He could have called them by name, right? So there's many ways, and God could have just put that understanding in them. Yeah, that's a really good question, Sue. Now I'm going to be like looking at that all the time, going, "Well, wonder what was the difference." Okay. All right. Other comments? We're going to go to the third one. This time, I want you to close your eyes, or at least kind of not read along with me anyway. And I want you to be somebody in the picture, or be somebody looking at the picture. But I want you to put yourself in the story, and I want you to experience it. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and read this one. I am going to move this over for anybody who's cheating, right? But, I want you to concentrate on being in the picture. All right. So, so Jesus took Peter, James, and John, and he went up the mountain to pray. While he was praying, his face changed in appearance and his clothing became dazzling white. And behold, two men were conversing with him, Moses and Elijah, who appeared in glory and spoke of his exodus that he was going to accomplish in Jerusalem. Peter and his companions had been overcome by sleep, but becoming fully awake, they saw his glory and the two men standing with him. As they were about to part from him, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is good that we are here. Let us make 3 tents, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." But he did not know what he was saying. While he was still speaking, a cloud came and cast a shadow over them, and they became frightened when they entered the cloud. Then from the cloud came a voice that said, "This is my chosen son. Listen to him." After the voice had spoken, Jesus was found alone. They fell silent and did not at that time tell anyone what they had seen. Who would like to share their experience? Who were you? What did you see? What was different? What did you notice upon? Rosemary, can I call on you?
Let's see. They were asleep in this one. I don't remember that being there before.
Okay.
and the cloud descended.
Okay. Did you choose to be anyone? How did you experience this story?
Yeah, I was the one that was asleep. Yeah,
Okay.
and wake up and startled and see the Jesus being fully engaged with these two people, and they're all bright and shiny.
Okay. Were you scared?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Ina, who did you be somebody in the story, Ina? Okay. Gonna let Sue unhook you there. All right. Who
Yeah,
were
I took the place of Peter. I was
Okay.
shocked. Yeah, shocked when I saw
Yeah.
him.
Yeah. Yeah. What happened whenever you were said, no, we're just going to ignore this thing about the tents. Did you
Yeah, I
have
was kind of disappointed when he said that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So there was a little bit of disappointment there because why was there that disappointment?
Because I thought he'd like that.
Oh, right. So you wanted to please him and you thought that was a really good idea. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody else want to share? Tammy, were you there? Can I ask you? Were you able to put yourself in the story?
Where's Tammy?
I don't know. My mind is just not, can't think of a person to be real. I was like Ina, just kind of like, with the like shocking, like what's the word I want to use? When you first see someone, you can't believe your eyes.
Right, right. So two of you have said the same thing. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Ina. Two of you have said the same thing. I didn't even really kind of know how to think about it, basically. But I wanted to do this. I wanted to please you, but I can't even put words to it. Could that be another reason why Jesus said, don't talk to anybody about this? Not right now, right? You got to have some perspective on this, right? It was so big they couldn't comprehend it yet. Like we have the whole story and we're experiencing it from the whole story, and it's still difficult for us to go, I don't know what I saw. I don't know what I heard, because it was really like, it's so amazing. Right? Jen.
But in this one, they weren't told not to tell anyone. It just says that they didn't tell anybody.
Right. So they didn't. So there's something else that I want to get to Jen. I want to hold that thought here. Does anybody have an experience they want to share before I move to that thought? Okay, so I want to share this thought. That was a little bit different. It says that they didn't tell anybody. The other ones say that they were told not to tell anybody. The stories, are they exactly the same? No, not exactly. But are they pretty much totally the same? Are they the same enough that we think that it's the same story? Yes. So if we want to believe that this story is true, can I believe that it's true? Because some of the details are a little bit different. Some of them say they were told not to, and one says that they didn't tell. They use a little bit of different. Can I be sure that this story is so? Like, I've got 3 different accounts, and there's some differences in there. Should that bother me? Gary, I saw Gary's hand first, and then
Yes.
Jen.
Okay, I can share something about that, because one of the things in reading the Bible years ago, I got so upset because of the inconsistencies that I found within the Bible. And I would run to Rosemary and I'd say, I found another one. Okay, and Rosemary would remind me about 2 people witnessing an accident. And when, later they investigate the accident and they get the stories, well, they get 2 different stories, but they're looking at the same accident. And that's because of their perspective. And so what we have here is an idea of the perspective that Matthew, Mark, and Luke have with regards to this particular event. So it was within their eyes and their perspective. And so it just adds depth to the meaning of the story.
Yes. I would worry if the words were exactly the same. I would worry that one was just saying the same thing the other one said. But there's so many likenesses that we can tell it is the same moment, the same event. And there's enough differences that we can be sure that they didn't just say, oh, well, Mark wrote this in his first, I'm going to copy the same thing. right? Jen, you had a thought.
That was exactly what I was going to say. You know, you can put two people in any situation and they're going to come out with something slightly different.
Right, right. So the samenesses, the very specifics, we know Jesus and Peter, James and John and Moses and Elijah. We know a high mountain. We know the cloud. We know the basics of the story are, oh, my goodness, the same, you know? So that can make us feel sure that this story is so. All right. And we know when God tells us something 3 times, and we have this 3 different times in the Bible, that it's not just important, that it's very, very important. So this is something really important for us. Okay. So we had those 3 stories and we looked at them. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn my camera back over to this side. Yes, Gary.
There's one additional thing I'd like to add that I found very disturbing in this story, and the idea that they were asleep. Okay. And when they woke up, they got fully aware of the glory of God. Okay. It's almost like in our life, oftentimes we don't get things for a long, long time. And then all of a sudden the light bulb goes on,
Yeah.
you know, and, you know, then it really starts having meaning to it.
Yes.
So,
And so they could mean asleep because they had a full day, you know, and then they went to the top of the mountain and they were tired, you know, they were just tired. Maybe they fell asleep at the top because they were waiting a minute while Jesus was praying. Do we hear about them falling asleep when he prayed before, you know, or again later, right?
oh, yeah.
So we have this idea of that. So, or it could also be this idea of we walk around all day long and don't see something and it's like we're asleep. And all of a sudden they see Jesus in this way and they think, was I asleep before that I didn't notice this? So lots of different ways, lots of different thoughts. Nice thought there, Gary. Thank you. All right. Anybody else? Okay. I want to look at, we've done a really close look. I want to look at one closer look at Mount Tabor, which is where we were. This is what they call a tabor. All right. Who knows what those are pictures of? Sue Fraley.
Those are the things that you put the monstrance on when you're doing Eucharistic adoration.
Yes. So when we have Eucharistic adoration and Jesus is in all display for us. So Mount Tabor is where Jesus was on full display in his beautiness, right? Isn't that amazing that we reenact this moment every time we have Eucharistic adoration, right? In the monstrance right here, for those of you who've not been to Eucharistic adoration, they put the host, right, the body of Jesus in there, and they put him in this monstrance, this vessel, this holy vessel, and they put him out on this tabor, and they put him out so we could be looking at Jesus while Jesus looks at us, and it's a special moment of holy prayer face to face with our Savior. So I think it's really cool that it happened on Mount Tabor. We have a tabor or a tabor, I don't know how we say it in English, and then we have Jesus present. And I just kind of like, that's one of the things that goes, oh, this is so cool, the Transfiguration every time we go. So just wanted to share that with you, my woohoo moment. Okay. All right, let's talk about it. What's your experience of this story? Anybody have some thoughts? Anybody have anything they want to add? Anything they want to share? Okay, here's what I want to do now. I want you guys to take your paper and I want you to fold it in a triangle, any type of triangle you want to. It needs to be a big triangle. So you're only going to fold it till it's a triangle. Like you're going to need to do something inside this triangle. So you need a little bit of space. So you can fold it any way you want to make it a 3-sided piece of paper. So you might have to take it, like I see Sue folding it and that leaves her with an edge. You might have to fold that edge under the inside.
I'm sorry, but I am not getting any voice at all.
Oh dear.
I don't know what's going on. I'm just watching pictures.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Does everybody have their paper folded into a triangle? Okay. Now you need your pencil too. And tonight I am not showing you pictures. Tonight you are making the pictures. You are making the artwork. All right. So I'm going to play some music And during this time of music, I want you to draw your version of the Transfiguration. Now I see Gary looking at me like, I can't believe you're doing this to me. All right. I will tell you, when I would have my students do this, some drew stick figures, some drew, it didn't matter. It didn't matter what it was. Some put lots and lots of detail into there. Some put hardly any detail. I want you to just, there's no right, there's no wrong. I want you to just draw this picture so that when I look at this picture, I would know that this is the Transfiguration. So you pick out the things that are important to you. I'm going to give you, let me see how long this song is here. I think it's about 4 minutes. And I'm just going to play this song for about 4 minutes. 3 minutes and 26 seconds. Okay, so we're going to draw the Transfiguration. All right, everybody ready? Here we go. And of course they give me an ad. Ugh.
I can see it.
Wrong one. Wrong one. I don't know what happened here. Let me try it again.
Be the genius your pet thinks you are.
5, 4,
Plus
3, 2, 1. Now we get 2 ads today. All right. You're drawing now. You're not looking, you're drawing.
Jesus on the mountain peak stands alone in glory blazing. Let us, if we dare to speak, join the saints and angels praising. Praise and glory, praise and glory, praise and glory to our Lord. Let us, if we dare to speak, join the saints and angels praising.
Trembling at his feet we saw Moses and Elijah speaking, all the prophets and the law shout through them their joyful greeting. Praise and glory, praise and glory, praise and glory to our Lord. All the prophets and the law shout through them their joyful greeting. With a cloud of glory came, God proclaiming in his thunder, Jesus as the Son by name. Nations cry aloud in wonder. Praise and glory, praise and glory, praise and glory to our Lord. Jesus as the Son by name. Nations cry aloud in wonder. Jesus is the chosen one, leading over every nation. Hear and heed him, everyone. Sing with earth and all creation. Praise and glory, praise and glory, praise and glory to our Lord. Hear and heed him, everyone. Sing with earth and all creation.
Okay. Who wants to share with us? I would hope that everyone would share with us. So remember, this is not an art contest. You had 3 minutes to do this, right? And so just want to see what kind of things struck you. So should I just call on you one by one and you put them up? Or do you want to just put them all up and everybody look in the screens? All right, let's do this. Let's put one up at a time so everybody has a chance to look. So you'll say your name as you put it up, so then that'll put us on the speaker view. Okay. All right. So I see Rose, you have yours up. We'll go ahead and speak your name so that it'll come up with your picture.
I don't know if you can see that.
Yep, this is my son. Listen to him. Okay, you want to explain your picture?
Okay, the apostles are sleeping and they're in a cloud. And you know, when you're in a cloud, you really can't see anything. So maybe they're woken up by God saying, "This is my son, listen to him."
Okay.
And so they must, Jesus and Moses and Elijah must have been really bright, because if they could see him when they were in a cloud.
And you know, I didn't think about this though, but they might have had to have been in a cloud so that they could see them. It might have been so bright.
Oh, that's my thought.
Okay, that's pretty cool. I see that your Moses and Elijah are on the same side. So Jesus is kind of facing them together as opposed to one on each side, which makes it easier for him to talk. It's not a ping pong match, right? Back and forth. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Can I call on Sue Fraley? You want to share yours?
Okay. Is it up?
Yep.
It's hard for me to see.
Okay, and then it says, what does it say then?
It says glaring light is coming from the three figures, and then the others are blocking the light.
Ah.
So it's sort of a, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So they're kind of holding themselves back from it.
And and the other ones are, emanating it, and the other ones are like, blocking it. But
okay. All right. So there, I hear that. I kind of see that. I kind of get that feeling that little bit of fear, that little bit of I'm not worthy kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that it is physically bright. Super. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Let's go, Sue Gearhart. Let's go with you.
Okay, I don't know how to draw fog or cloud, but it's the guys, my little guys have big ears because they're learning to listen.
Awesome.
And I don't know what God would have looked like other than the voice. So the thing that I think of God all the time is the little dove. So he's above the cloud.
Okay.
And basically they're on the ground and Jesus is there. And but yeah, the big ears, that listen to him again is really striking me tonight.
Okay. I really like that. We know that artists put in what strikes them. And so that's a really important part too. That's speaking to you. Great. Tammy, do you want to try it?
Trying to unmute. Oh.
There you are.
Okay, hold on here a minute. Mine isn't in very good. Oh, wait a minute here.
Remember, nobody's just going to hang in a museum because we had 3 minutes to do this. So nobody's just going to hang in a museum.
I'm not a drawer. Can you see it?
Okay, so we see him. Okay, somebody's in a cloud.
Supposed to be Jesus in the cloud.
Okay, Jesus is in the cloud.
Raised like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.
Okay.
Coming out, and people down below.
Okay, and who are the people? Hold it up a little bit higher so we can see the people. All right.
People.
And those are the people. That would be like Peter, James, and John?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Jesus is so high above them, like right. As in like totally awesome.
Right.
Okay. Okay. How about Fran Waltman? Thank you. So when I do this with my students, I make them lay their pictures out on the tables and we walk around the room and everybody just looks at the picture on the table. Nobody has a chance to explain. And it's amazing some of the things we end up seeing. So, all right. So Fran Waltman.
Okay, I must have missed the very beginning whenever you said to even get a paper.
Oh,
I
okay.
did not have a paper, but I enjoyed the music and I enjoyed all those pictures. I thought
Okay, good.
those
Good.
were
I'm
really
glad that, so I'm
that would put a lot of thought into your if you were saying the rosary and you were visualizing all those pictures, and I thought that was very good.
okay. No, I
Sorry.
didn't make that song. I didn't make those pictures, but I thought it was a really good one also. I did. So thank you. Let's see. How about Gary and Rosemary? Can you guys put that one on?
I get to go first? Okay. Okay. Can you see the top there?
Lift it up a little higher. There you go,
Okay.
right there.
Okay. I have the king crown there for Jesus.
Okay.
And I have Moses with the tablets and a fire with Elijah.
Okay.
And then I have the apostles, they're kneeling and they've got big question marks over the top.
Yes. 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 Gary.
Okay, can you see that?
Yes.
Okay, well, I kept the triangle theme there.
Yes.
And of course, there is Mount Tabor. Okay, and then Moses has the 10 Commandments and the rod.
His staff, I
okay,
see that.
And Elijah has a scroll. And Jesus is different. He's a rectangle, but also shows the cross. That was what they were talking about.
Yes.
And over here is me. I'm hiding behind a bush.
Okay.
Somewhere, yeah, over here.
And I love the Peter, James, and John they're like the little tents that Peter wanted to make.
They're down here. They're
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
And God's up here.
God's very bright. I see that. Awesome. Awesome. Nancy, I saw you starting to draw. Did it finally come through? Did you hear that or were you just able to watch? Could you hear us?
I'm trying to unmute. There.
Okay, yeah, you're unmuted.
I missed that whole thing.
Right, I heard you.
I did finally hear from everyone showing their pictures, but I didn't really know what that was about. But I
okay
the pictures.
But you got to see them. Okay. Yeah. All right. Let's see. Who else do we have? I have Jen. Jen, we need Jen. Thank you. Thanks, Nancy.
You're gonna make me follow Gary, huh?
Oh, do you feel like you're being singled out? Remember, none of our pictures are going to hang in a museum.
What's really not fair is that Joe just got home because he's quite an artist compared to me, but this is what I came up with.
Okay. And explain. Okay, I can see a little better. Explain it then.
Okay, so here's Jesus with the cross and those lights shining around him. And I just sort of had the voice coming out from the clouds and then Moses and Elijah on either side. And then the other three down prostrate.
Yes.
At the whole.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Ina.
There we go.
Okay. Very cool. Very cool.
In the cloud.
Yes.
It says, listen to him. So that's mine with all the radiation coming out.
Very cool. And I see that you can see the people, the three of them
on the
down
bottom.
There. Yep. And Jesus certainly takes the vision there. All right. Thoughts on this exercise? Thoughts on this exercise? Let's see. Susan.
I hate to ask Joanne, this has really been intriguing to me, and the way all of you have put the story with the Old Testament. Please don't leave me hanging. When does it all come together for these guys that they really understood what this was about? Is it at the crucifixion? Where did they get the whole thing that comes together, so that they were able to go out amongst the people and truly talk to them about it.
It happens 50 days after the resurrection at the whenever the Holy Spirit comes upon the apostles, and we'll find that out in the glorious mysteries. Is that right, Gary? Yes. Okay. I started to speak and then I saw Gary's hand go, and I'm like, oh, so I already got that in there. All right. So here's what I want to do. We do have some special guests tonight to lead our prayer. Anybody have any thoughts on this exercise? Did you like it? Yeah. Did it help you having the triangle? So sometimes I give other shapes to my students, but I always give them a triangle for this one. And it's kind of cool because some of them keep it upside down, like some of it doesn't matter. But we do have some special guests tonight, and I'm going to move this a little bit forward. We did our sharing is caring. So thank you, everybody. I know that it's hard to share our own work when we feel like everybody's might be better than ours, but none of ours is going to hang in a museum. And I thought they were all beautiful. I really, I got something from each one of them, things to think on. And I always like that you guys give me so much. So thank you. All right. So we're going to lead with the Rosary tonight, and the Jaegers are going to help us with the Rosary. You want to introduce your kids, Jen?
This is Matthew and Olivia.
Hi, Matthew and Olivia. So did your mom explain how this is going to work? Okay, so I'm going to read a little tiny verse, and then whichever one of you are leading the Hail Mary or the Our Father will start, and then the other one will say the rest of it. And mom and dad can help you if they want, okay? If you allow them. All right, so we're going to start the fourth luminous mystery in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. The fourth luminous mystery, the Transfiguration. So we're going to start with an Our Father.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
Amen. Jesus takes Peter, James, and John up a high mountain.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
He is transfigured before them.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now at the hour of our death. Amen.
His face becomes like the sun, his clothes white as snow.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Jesus reveals his divinity.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now
Look at these kids.
and at our death. Amen.
The apostles fall face to the ground.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women. Blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Moses and Elijah speak with Jesus.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
They speak of his coming passion.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Looking up, the apostles see Jesus alone.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Peter said, we should build 3 monuments here.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Jesus replied, "Tell no one until the Son of Man is risen." They did not understand.
Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. Amen.
Ready? Go ahead.
Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, to the Holy Spirit.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. Yes. Oh, my Jesus, forgive us our sins.
Our sins,
Save
save
us
us
from the fires of hell.
hell. Lead all souls to heaven, help especially those in the mercy of thy mercy. Jesus, Mary, I love you, save souls.
Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. I think we are all giving you a great round of applause.
You guys.
And everybody clapping. Can you see them?
They're clapping for you.
Yay!
See, around
That was beautiful. You made all of us smile. And you know, God especially hears the voice of children because you guys are so close to him, and it made him really happy, I am sure. Thank you for sharing that with us tonight. So, any thoughts? Anybody have any other thoughts tonight? Okay, so any oh, Fran, did you have, Fran Waltman, did I see your hand go up, or was that just a fluke? Oh, I think her hand just came through. Oh, yes. Fran, did you have a thought?
No, I just going to turn it off.
Oh, okay. So we're going to do a closing prayer. And then I have another beautiful slide for you tonight to remind us that next week, same time. Okay, so we'll do our prayer and then we'll go ahead and go. Thank you, everybody, for participating tonight. We got one more left in the Luminous Mysteries, and then we'll be taking a break for at least a week, and then we'll come back for Lent, huh? Anybody who's ready? All right. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and glorious Jesus, you who are the Son, but yet who are still God, but are different, but the same, and you're all one. And how it's so hard for us to understand you, but it doesn't matter because you hold us where you know we are, and you just continue to keep guiding us, and you love us from afar, and you love us from close, and you just rejoice in the fact that we have a desire to know you. We ask that we can come closer to you every day, that we can serve you, that we can honor you, that we can bring others close to you by who we are, because we're imitating you. We thank you for the very many gifts that you've given us. We thank you for this gift, especially of technology, that we can meet with each other during a time when we're not supposed to be out face to face, but we can still be together. We thank you for that technology. We thank you for the fact that we live in a nation where we can say your name out loud. We thank you that there are others who have a desire to know you, and that they've come together, and that they're sharing and caring with us. We thank you, Lord, for all the many blessings. We ask that you will bless each one of us, that you will heal the wounds of our hearts. You know that we have many, many desires and many, many groanings and urgings from the Spirit, and you know what they are. And we just ask that you will bless us as you see fit, and that we will be able to just sit with you and just wait to follow your lead. We thank you for this time together, and we just love you, Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. So you know the drill. Same bat time next week, same bat channel. All right.
Good night, all.
All right. Good night. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
All right.
Night.
See you, everybody. Thank you, Joanne.
Yep. You're welcome. Thank you, Sue. You guys, you and Jen especially worked really hard to make this happen tonight. Thank you.
All right.